Every month, we'll be talking about medical aid in dying and featuring guest speakers. I want to go ahead and turn the program over to Jen Carlo. Jen is our program manager, and she's the force behind these sessions. And I'm just so thrilled to be with you all. We'll have plenty of time, I think, for a discussion and questions. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Amy. I will spotlight myself for just a moment. Hi, as Amy said, I'm Jen. I'm the program manager. Just wanted to let you know that we are recording tonight's presentation, and we'll be spotlighting speakers so that you can kind of tell who's speaking. And generally, the audience faces will not be shown, but if you're at all concerned about privacy, we just want to let you know that. So that you're welcome to be off camera and you're welcome to name yourself anything that you want to under your picture. If you've just recently come in, please go ahead and put your name if you're so inclined and where you're from so we can see who's with us tonight. We've been talking about colleges that we've gone to that have since closed. So that's not the most uplifting topic, but I see that we have a graduate of the Philadelphia University of the Arts, as well as those of us in Vermont. So please go ahead and add that to the chat if you'd like. We're going to start with a presentation about Act 39 and medical aid in dying in Vermont. And we welcome all questions. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share that presentation so that that we can start with that. And I will ask that if you have a question, you either unmute yourself and ask it whenever I pause, or you put it in the chat and Amy will help me follow the questions there. So let's get started. And thank you again for attending tonight. This is a great audience for a gray and rainy Thursday or Wednesday evening. So thank you. Patient Choices Vermont is a nonprofit organization. We're funded by donations and grants. As you might imagine, we receive no state or federal funding for what we do. Our organization was founded in 2002 by a couple named Dick and Ginny Walters. They were aware that Oregon had a right to medical aid in dying at that time, the only state in the country, and they thought that Vermont should have that too. So, showing great leadership and persistence, they formed an organization. They started to advocate. They recruited other like-minded folks, and they thought it would take about 2-3 years to legalize medical aid in dying in Vermont. And 11 years later, Act 39, Vermont's Patient Choice at End of Life Law, was passed. So we thank them for their persistence. And their daughter, Betsy Walkerman, was the president of the organization for a number of years. So we thank that entire family for all of their work in this area. Patient Choices Vermont has worked since then to safeguard and improve the law and provide education and outreach, which is what we're doing here tonight. Organization is run almost entirely by volunteers. Amy is our first full-time executive director, and she's been on the job for about a year, and I just passed my 6-month anniversary, so we are delighted to be here. The timeline for medical aid in dying in Vermont was, as I said, Act 39 was passed in 2013. And then in 2022, it was amended. Telemedicine was allowed for the first time at the discretion of the physician. There was some legal protections expanded for the healthcare team, and there was a final 48-hour waiting period that was removed. The big change came in 2023. There was a lawsuit filed against the state health department by a woman named Linda Bluestein, who lived in Connecticut and who was terminally ill. And her lawsuit was joined by Dr. Diana Barnard, who has been a wonderful advocate for medical aid in dying and has worked with PCV for a very long time. And their argument was that it's unconstitutional to restrict a medical right from residents of other states, that needed to be available to non-Vermont residents. So the state health department settled with Linda, and then the legislature amended the law to allow non-residents to access medical aid in dying in Vermont. Although it's important to note that all steps of the process must still take place in Vermont with Vermont licensed physicians. So I don't read a lot of slides because, it's not really the purpose here, but this one's kind of important. There's a very specific definition for medical aid in dying, and there are certain things, as you can see bolded here, that are really crucial elements. So I will read this one. Medical aid in dying allows qualified adults who are terminally ill and who are capable of making their own decisions the option to receive a prescription medication to be self-administered to bring about a peaceful death at the time of the patient's choosing. And we're going to talk about the various elements in that process in the next few slides. Medical aid in dying can only be accessed by qualified adults, and you have to follow a very specific process that's laid out in Act 39. There are no shortcuts and no exceptions to that. So the qualifications to access medical aid in dying in Vermont are you have to be an adult and you must have a terminal diagnosis and a prognosis of 6 months or less, which is similar to the qualifications for hospice. You have to have the mental capacity to make this decision, and that needs to be true at the beginning of the process and all the way through the process right until the moment you take the medication. You need to make an informed and voluntary request, and you need to be able to self-administer the medication. That's another crucial element. Your family cannot help, your healthcare team cannot help. You need to be able to take the medication yourself, and all those qualifications must be met in all cases. The process to access medical aid in dying is laid out in Act 39, and as we said before, there are no shortcuts and no exceptions. It's very important to understand that. You need to make 2 oral requests to your prescribing physician, and those need to be at least 15 days apart. There are a number of safeguards that are written into the law, and that waiting period is one of them. You also need to make a written request to the prescribing physician. It's a form. It's on the Department of Health website, and it's also on the Patient Choices website in our clinician's guide. And that form needs to be witnessed by 2 unrelated adults who are not on your care team, not your family, nobody who has any particular interest in your death. And then after all of that is completed, you need to have a second physician who will confirm that you qualify for medical aid in dying. And often that's accessed through the prescribing physician. I'm going to pause here. Amy hasn't let me know that there are any questions in the chat, but if anybody wants to unmute and ask anything, I'm just going to take a little breather.
Jen, we had one
I have a
question.
question.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Please.
The unrelated people who generally are those, where do those people come from?
They can be people that you know in other contexts. We've heard of folks going to their local library and asking someone to witness their signature on a form. It just can't be a family member, and it can't be a member of your care team.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
You're very welcome.
And Jen, we have another question. I will read it. Can you talk about the requirements, which is the person has to be capable of making their own decisions? Is someone with cognitive impairment or dementia, but who has agency, would that be okay?
So it's really up to your prescribing physician to determine whether you meet the criteria of being able to make your own decisions. And that can be a challenging determination for folks with dementia or other conditions that will lead to cognitive impairment. The prescribing physician has the option, if he or she feels it's necessary, to require a mental health or other evaluation to determine whether you have the capacity to make that decision. But whoever has asked that question has really touched on something that can be a real challenge. There are different conditions that will lead to it will diminish your cognitive capacity. And there are cases where someone is not eligible for medical aid in dying because of that. Did that answer the question? Okay.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Uh, Um, I'm interested in this because I think when you do those Medicare tests and they have to remember 3 words and so forth, you can end up on with something on your record where it'll say dementia, early stages of dementia, mild cognitive impairment. And it makes me wonder if I should refuse that test, the whole cognitive testing, just to keep my options open.
I'm sure that that a prescribing physician would really kind of try to get as much information about your mental capacity as possible. I will just quickly share, my dad has Alzheimer's, and he and my mom hate those 3-word tests, absolutely hate them. And so I think that that certainly would not be the only thing that your prescribing physician would take a look at.
Okay, thank you.
And we have 2 more questions, both related to the ability to take the medication independently. So the first is from Joan, and she asks, what accommodation is made for someone who cannot ingest the medication? And then the second related question from Emmy, what if the person has muscle or physical impairments, for example, ALS, and is not able to independently hold a drink, take a medication, but is mentally competent and able to make a decision?
Okay. Self-administration of the medication is, again, a crucial element and a requirement of Act 39. The medication can be administered at any point in the digestive tract. There are patients who have administered the medication rectally or through an ostomy or other port of entry into the GI tract, depending on their physical condition. There are conditions that will impair your ability to swallow. So that would be something to be discussed with your prescribing physician to determine whether or not you're eligible to self-administer the medication in a way that's going to ensure that that it works.
Great. And Sue from End of Life Choices California, and thank you so much for joining us. She does clarify someone else can hold the cup while a client drinks it through a straw.
Yep.
So yes, that level of assistance is fine, and often people choose to have the person drink through a straw because that is something that you cannot force someone to sip through a straw. They have to be able to do that on their own. Thanks, Sue, for clarifying that.
Thanks, Sue. Always appreciate some support from colleagues.
Could I just ask another question?
Yep.
So to follow up on the dementia thing, are you saying that even if someone has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, if the prescribing physician determines they have agency, then they could go through this process in Vermont?
If the prescribing physician believes that the patient has the mental capacity to make this decision, and that is confirmed by the confirming physician, then the patient could be eligible for MAID. But that's something that would need to be determined by the physicians who are working with you.
Okay, but they would have to have another disease where they would be within the 6-month death period, like cancer. Okay,
Correct.
I see.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Keep the questions coming, please. Anything else before we move on? Okay.
No.
We added this day of ingestion slide because we found, especially when we were out making public presentations, that these are questions that everyone wonders about, but sometimes are a little bit difficult to ask. So on the day that you're going to take the medical aid in dying medication, you would take 2 medications for nausea about half an hour before you're going to take the MAID medication to make sure that you retain the medication. And then you'll confirm again that you want to go ahead and ingest the medication. And then you need to be able to drink or otherwise self-administer the medical aid in dying medication without assistance. Although, as Sue notes, somebody can hold the cup for you, but you need to be the one who's taking the medication. It's a compounded powder. There are 5 different medications that are in it, and it's mixed with about 2 ounces of a clear liquid, usually water or clear apple juice. And the patient will fall asleep very quickly, usually within about 5 or 10 minutes, and the patient will not awaken. The time to death can be variable depending on a lot of physical factors that are individual to each patient. We encourage everyone to talk very frankly with their prescribing physician about any red flags or anything that they think might impact the time that the death process can take, so that family and supporters can be prepared. The patient will not awaken, the patient will not be aware of what's going on, but we want to be sure that everyone around them is aware. And we strongly recommend hospice enrollment for any number of reasons. There are so many services provided by hospice, support to your survivors, symptom management. There are so many reasons to enroll in hospice. And one of the reasons is that if you are enrolled in hospice, a hospice nurse can pronounce your death when you ingest. So medical aid in dying is always voluntary. Qualified patients can choose to pursue medical aid in dying, but it's always your choice. And you can stop the process or rescind a request at any time. You can go to your first consultation with your prescribing physician and perhaps decide after getting more information that it's not something that you choose to pursue. You are absolutely free to stop the process at any time, literally until you take the medication. It's also important to note that healthcare providers are not required to participate in medical aid in dying either. So if your physician does not choose to participate in this process, he or she could perhaps refer you to somebody who will. If a doctor is going to prescribe medical aid in dying, they do have to inform patients of all of their end-of-life choices: hospice, palliative care, palliative sedation, etc., so that patients are making a truly informed choice. And we have resources on our website and physical resources that you can take with you to help you talk to your doctor about all of this, with suggested questions and ways to approach these topics. And again, it's so important that we put that on 2 subsequent slides. We strongly recommend hospice enrollment. Medical aid in dying is not suicide. There's legal, practical, and emotional differences. If you use medical aid in dying, your death certificate will record a natural death with your underlying condition as the cause of death. And medical aid in dying is not euthanasia. You are making a choice to self-administer a prescription medication. And medical aid in dying is not for everyone, and we always recognize that and respect every choice that folks make at the end of their lives. So some statistics around medical aid in dying in Vermont. The State Department of Health collects these, and they do it on a 2-year cycle, and they do it according to their fiscal year. So it can get just a little bit confusing. It's July to June. So from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023, medical aid in dying was used by about 85 Vermonters. It's a little more than 40 each year. And over the 10 years since the passage of Act 39 in 2013, it was used by about 203 Vermonters. That's a very slow and steady increase as more people have become aware of the MAID process, as more clinicians have become aware of it. The statistics for 2023 through 2025 are the ones that we're waiting to hear about now. Those are the first statistics that are going to include out-of-state folks who access MAID in Vermont. Those have been collected by the Vermont Department of Health, but Act 39 requires that they be reported to the legislature before they can be released to the public. So we're looking for those in early 2026. Currently, medical aid in dying is legal in 11 states and the District of Columbia, and you can see the states that are listed there. The New York legislature has passed a bill, and it's not yet gone to Governor Hochul. It will need to before the end of the year, so we're waiting to see if it will become legal in New York. And the Illinois legislature has just passed the bill as well, and I don't think Governor Pritzker has yet acted on it. So it's possible that 2 more states may join that list in the near future. Another thing that people are always concerned and asking about is, are there any incidents that we know of abuse of this process? People who are coerced into taking medical aid in dying, people who access it through channels which they should not. And as you can imagine, everyone who works in this space pays very close attention to this. And we can honestly say we know of no reported incidents of abuse of this process in any U.S. jurisdiction where it is legal. So we would encourage everyone to visit the Patient Choices Vermont website, perhaps more than once, because it's truly a treasure trove of information. It is packed with all kinds of things. You will find a description of the qualifications and the process as we just outlined them. Links to forms, personal stories from patients and families, a clinician's guide that has a lot of medical information, and all kinds of news and other information. We'd also encourage you to sign up for our mailing list because you're going to want to know about every Exit Matters, as well as all kinds of interesting information that we send out on a regular basis. So we have 2 groups of volunteers. The first is the Wayfinders. They are not official PCV volunteers, but it's an affiliated network, and it's an independent and collaborative group with varied end-of-life experience, retired hospice nurses, death doulas, social workers, and they work directly with patients and their families, often to support logistics, particularly for folks who come to Vermont from out of state to access medical aid in dying. They help support arranging caregivers, referrals to physicians, lodging, logistics, support of all kinds. And we have several of our Wayfinders here on the call tonight. So thank you for joining us. That's an affiliated network. And then we also have a helpline, and these are PCV volunteers working directly with us. We have 4 wonderful helpline volunteers. At least one of them is on tonight. They work about a week at a time, responding to any information or any inquiries or messages that come in through. It's primarily a web form. We occasionally get a voice message, but most of it comes in through a web form on our site. There's about 1,000 people a year who reach out asking for all kinds of information about the medical aid in dying process in Vermont. And we have found that the ability to access an actual human being and really kind of go back and forth with them on questions is a great comfort to folks and very, very useful. And our volunteers are very dedicated. They provide quick and thorough answers to everyone who reaches out. Just give a nod to Compassion and Choices, which is a national organization that works with all of our state organizations and works to expand options around medical aid in dying. And we've talked tonight, as we do at almost all of these presentations, about folks with dementia or other forms of cognitive decline. And so we just point out the Dartmouth Dementia Directive. There are other resources on our website, and we'll be putting some links in the chat throughout the rest of this presentation. And there will be a video of this presentation on our website. So stay tuned if you'd like to see all of this again. And I'll just call your attention to our December program, December 2nd. Amy is speaking with Cindy Brucesi of the Vermont Ethics Network. So any last questions on
We do
that?
have a couple questions.
Yep.
Susan asks, are patients finding it difficult to find a doctor who will act as their prescribing physician?
I think there's various levels of challenge around that, and that's fairly individual. Some people can work with the doctor that they already have and just continue that as part of their medical care. Some may need to ask their current physicians for referrals. We believe that Vermonters who are trying to access MAID are by and large able to find a Vermont physician who will work with them on that. It becomes a little bit more challenging if you're coming from out of state. We always suggest to people that they start with their own physicians to see if they can get a referral. And if you need to, reach out over our helpline.
All right. And then let's see. Dawn asked, would writing your wishes regarding MAID in the event of a loss of cognitive acuity into your advanced directive be helpful? And Sue chimed in, and yes, unfortunately, that does not help you qualify for medical aid in dying. It certainly is a support to your families and your healthcare agent that they understand what your wishes are, and you can explore other options at end of life. But in the United States, that does not work to then qualify you for medical aid in dying. And then the last question is asking if PCV plans to try to enlarge the law to include people, for example, with people with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's with a longer prognosis. And the answer to that is currently no. There are no states in the United States that support medically to dying for someone who does not have a 6-month prognosis and does not have the ability to make an independent medical decision. So it's not something that we're going to be, we're not going to be pursuing that change in the law at this time. There's really not, the culture in the US is not really there. And then the last question, could you send all of these links to resources in an email? All of these resources will be, are on our website, and they will be in the recording. Jen, is there any other response you want to make to that?
No, but what I will do right now is I will put the link to our contact form so that you can follow up with inquiries. That will go to Amy and me into our helpline volunteers, and you're welcome to use that at any time. And I'm also going to put the link to our website into the chat. And we will send you a follow-up email. So you can visit our website at any time. And I'm also putting my email in the chat so that you can reach out at any time you have a question. So thank you. That was robust. So thank you for all of those wonderful questions. Please keep them coming. I'm going to introduce Michelle now so that she can move on with her part of the presentation. But please continue to put questions in the chat, even if we have to respond to them with a chat reply, or reach out to us at any time. We really welcome all of your questions. So tonight, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Michelle Acciavati as our guest. Michelle is the founder of the Vermont Forest Cemetery, where family and friends can bury their loved ones naturally in a way that's mutually supportive with the growing things of the forest. Michelle is multi-talented. She's a licensed funeral director. She's a death doula. She's a pregnancy loss guide. She's an end-of-life specialist and a natural burial educator. So very, very busy woman and very, very talented. She works with people preparing for the end of life, designing funeral services, caring for their own dead, and exploring natural burial options. So I am delighted to turn the program over to Michelle.
Hi, everybody. So that was a really wonderful discussion, and it may seem like a little bit of a pivot to go from talking about, the dying to what happens after you die. But as someone who is part of the Wayfounder Network and who has worked with people that are thinking about the end of their life, whether they're using Act 39 or not, I find that it's really important for people to have a sense of what's happening next, to have sort of a sense of everything being taken care of, both for their loved ones and for their sense of completeness in their own life. And so I don't want to talk for too long. Time is somewhat limited. What I'm going to do is show a documentary. It's a less than 20 minutes, about 18 minutes long in total, that was made by a group of student filmmakers from Ithaca College. It has won a number of awards, is a short documentary in general, not just as a student film. They followed the opening of Vermont Forest Cemetery. The family of our first burial at Vermont Forest Cemetery allowed them to film that burial. And it also looks at another cemetery in upstate New York, which is Green Springs. So really quickly before we get into it, natural burial is a way of giving our bodies back to the earth that sustains us in life. So in conventional burial practices, the body may be embalmed or cremated, but in either way, there's not a lot of nutrients that are then returned to the soil. So in natural burial, we give the body back to the soil in a way that it can be used and recycled back into the ecosystem. I like to tell people we're a snack for the planet. Basically, everything that makes us in our lives comes from the natural world, and we can give that back. So this is just an example of what it looks like. It wasn't fully legal here in Vermont until 2017. I was a part of that process to legalize it. And then I realized it's something that I really wanted for myself. And although there are a number of cemeteries in Vermont that have a natural burial section, there was not a single cemetery in Vermont that was dedicated to natural burial. And so I went ahead and did that. And so we're located in a forest in Roxbury. And I'm going to let the documentary speak for itself. And then we have some time for questions at the end of it. And we do a lot of outreach through the cemetery. So if there's questions that don't get answered tonight, over the winter, we do online Q&A sessions, and in the warmer months, basically May through November, we lead tours almost every weekend of the month. People can come out and tour the cemetery and see for themselves. So this is not your only opportunity to learn about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I think as Americans, there's a lot of things that we don't do well with regards to death. And I think that where it all stems from is how cut off we are from the dying process.
Maybe concrete vaults and mahogany caskets and watertight containers that keep out the earth and they keep out water for a little while. Maybe that's about not going away.
We're a death denial society. We deny the fact that we're not immortal, and we do everything in our culture, in our society, in our practices of daily life, not respecting the dignity of human life and not respecting it when death occurs.
So in a conventional cemetery, you'll see a lot of headstones, marble, granite headstones. So it's a little bit like a golf course in a sense, like it's mown and manicured.
There's so much with conventional burial that is all about hiding that that's what's happening, like from embalming that has a person looking like they're sleeping to maintaining this like park-like environment that's perfectly flat, as if we couldn't imagine what's going on underneath.
If you look at the monuments that people build to themselves and the legacies that they're trying to leave, it seems to be about not going away.
Don't do it! No.
So
We're going to that line.
we're here. We got to go there.
In mud.
In mud and rock. Yeah. Go downhill. Well,
And then put all the dirt
but they
back in
dig it and refill it all at once.
and put hay bales over
So
the
it's
top.
loosened up and you just have to move it. No, where that.
I came to death work late. I thought I was going to be a neuroscientist and went to grad school and all these things first before I discovered this. But I took my first steps when I was 9 months old at my great grandmother's funeral. Like, I was so incredibly on brand my entire life. When I actually started working in fields adjacent to death work and being around people that were dying, the ability to like hang in and recognize like, oh, I can be here. This isn't weird for me. This isn't hard for me. I actually really enjoy meeting people in this space. My name is Michelle Hogel-Achavadi, and I am a natural death care worker and a natural burial cemeterian. The traditional way that we buried people over 150 years ago and going back was natural burial. So we're going back to the way things were. A lot of natural burial grounds strive for that effect, to just look like a natural place in the world. So instead of a funeral director preparing the body, taking the body away, from the time that death occurs until the time that is of burial, the family is in relationship with that body and the fact that the death has occurred in a very physical and tangible way. Instead of leaving the casket or the body on top of the grave, people need to come and lower the body into the grave. And what I find the biggest difference in the experience is, for one, you're much more prepared for walking away from that gravesite because you know that you've gone to give that body back to the earth. I was left with this idea that I don't have to just train and offer this to people, but I also have a responsibility to make the systems that make it possible. In 2015, Vermont defined cemeteries very strictly, and it included fencing and paths and maintenance clauses and a burial depth of 5 feet for burials. You really want the body close to the active layers of the soil. You don't really want much more than 2.5 feet of soil on top of the body. 5 feet is a great depth to accommodate a burial vault, but we don't use those in natural burial, so we needed to change the law.
It's been a hard road for her to bring this vision of hers of Vermont Forest Cemetery to fruition. Run into a lot of opposition. She ran into opposition from conventional cemeteries, and there was fear that we were going to mandate their best management practices and what they were going to have to do.
If you had talked to me in 2017, I would say that you're unrealistic having a natural or a green burial, because no one can tell me the logistics of doing the actual burial. How do you lower the body into the ground? How do you keep the ground from freezing in the wintertime? Are there going to be smells that we have to worry about? Do we have to worry about animals digging it up? How are the family members and people at the funeral going to accept seeing a body in a shroud?
My brother died this past December. My nieces and nephews, grandnieces and nephews, had all made a plan to go to the funeral home and to pay their last respects. I know the grandkids had some things they wanted to put into the casket, things like that. When they got there, the door was locked and they couldn't get in. They were able to contact somebody inside who came to the door and let them in, and they explained why they were there. And they were told, oh, well, no, you can't do that because the coffin is already closed. So you can't do any of those things. Well, they were shocked, like, what? It was just so unexpected.
Are you scared of dying?
We were here on a summer day, as I recall, wasn't it?
It's July.
It was bright and sunny and peaceful and beautiful. We immediately made a decision right then and there. This is what we want. This fits for us.
I'm certainly scared of dying. I'm not scared of death, per se, but being scared of the dying process, And so I will say that in November of 22, I turned 80 years old. It really made me very conscious of what do I want to do with this time? What do I want to do with these years? What kind of a legacy do I want to leave to my children, my grandchildren, my friends, to the world, you know?
No one could imagine that level of grief, you know, to lose your own child. I mean, I lost all my reproductive organs. The baby was just growing in the wrong spot, and it was kind of a rare thing. And I would go there and just lay and look up, and it's really beautiful all through here, but it was especially like peaceful and sort of secluded. It just felt like kind of held my sadness quite comfortingly. There's a certain stillness that's in you that isn't there when your mind is racing and you're just doing your ordinary living. That, you know, you're out of the ordinary when you're in grief. And when you bring yourself to this amazing nature preserve, things happen that maybe are always happening, but we don't attend to it.
So today is the grand opening of Vermont Forest Cemetery, and we have been working for the last month to get ready for this. We bought this land in 2021 with the idea of turning it into the cemetery, and then we had to take it through the permitting process, and I had to dream about what it was. And what makes today really, really special is this is the official day for me that this no longer is my cemetery and it becomes everybody's cemetery. This is the day I give it away. So it's the official opening, but what it means to me is today it becomes everybody's cemetery.
And the first poem is called "And Still." This morning, as with every morning, our sun settles its first rays upon the crests of Woodbury Mountain. This morning, as with every morning, our sun slowly pours itself upon the lower slopes and rock faces of Woodbury Mountain. This morning, as with every morning, our sun unspools itself upon the valley floor and migrates west until it reaches this house, where I am finally illuminated in late sunlight. All of this happens this morning and every morning and will continue until I am buried nearby, until this house crumbles into earth, until these white pines and sugar maples tumble home and decompose.
It is one of the best moments of my life. It just feels like everything that I worked for is really real. It came together and it worked. Like it worked, and other people believe in it, and they're happy and they're excited. And I guess intellectually I've known that, but at the end of the tour that I gave, like they gave me a standing ovation, and it was just okay. No, I could cry about it. I am crying about it. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Ron was a brilliant man. He was good in math. Anything he set his mind to, he was able to do. He taught himself to play piano. We had very little discussion about our end-of-life plans. Ron did not want to think about it, and he didn't want to talk about it. He said one time that he didn't want to depress me about talking about it. And I wanted to say back to him, it doesn't depress me. I want to talk about it. It's not an easy decision to make, really. My grandsons were great. They're ages 4 and 8. I was concerned about what their reaction would be. It's one thing when you see a box, a casket, and you know there's a body inside. And quite something else when you see a body that's wrapped in a shroud, because you can see the shape of the body.
But nature is me. I am nature. I am a part of nature. When you think of death, because you asked me about, am I, scared? And I said, oh, sure I am. But when I think about it in those terms, it just seems so normal. It just seems so natural. Someday, I hope that my children or grandchildren will be able to plant a tree there, and I will be a source of nurturance for that tree. So in a sense, life continues. It comes kind of full circle, in a very beautiful kind of way.
This is home. This is home. If there's a place on earth that we would like to be for the rest, whatever time, it would be this. It would be this place.
You can't predict how you're going to go, but you can plan for whatever happens. Yes, well, I think that probably everybody thinks about it, but they're afraid to talk about it. I don't mind talking about it. I kind of like talking about it.
I love what I do. You'd think that it would be depressing. It's so strangely, deeply life-affirming. When I think that we do ourselves a grave injustice when we act as if there's always tomorrow. If we remember that there isn't, we have the potential to live such more meaningful lives.
Drove Ron absolutely wild when I'd play this thing out of tune. So hopefully he's not listening.
Thank you. Yeah. I haven't gotten to sit through it for a while. I have a 10-month-old, so when we do these screenings, I usually have to hang out with him. So it's lovely to see it again. So does anybody, so we're here to ask questions. And I can stay for a little bit. Again, I have a tiny 10-month-old boss, so I can't stay for too much longer because we're almost at bedtime. But I'd love to answer some questions while we're here, and I will make sure that our website information and how to find us and ask more questions gets out to all of you that came tonight as well. But I'd love to answer some questions while I'm here with you.
So Michelle, we've got one in the chat, and I did put your website in the chat. It's where is Green Springs located?
So Green Springs is in Ithaca, New York. Yeah. And I was lucky to do a lot of mentorship with the people there. It is the third oldest of the natural burial grounds in the United States. Natural burial isn't new in the sense that until about 150 years ago, everybody had a natural burial, and it's made a return to kind of growing in popularity and how we bury people since the 1990s. And so Green Springs opened in the late 90s.
So someone asks, Mary asks, what is the cost?
What is the cost at our cemetery?
Yes.
Yes. It's like I can't speak to Green Springs. We're pivoting. So at our cemetery, our hope is that this is going to be a participatory event. So as you saw in the documentary, Ron's children and family were very active in carrying his body to the gravesite and lowering him and filling the grave. And so for people that have 4 or more people in their community that can assist us with the burial price or the burial practices, we have a base price of $27.20. So that includes the cost of your grave, the cost of the work that we do to help you find the grave and open it and educate you about natural burial. And the $20 is because the town of Roxbury in Vermont, where we're located, charges us $20 to file the paperwork that's necessary. And so we pass that charge along to you. So that's $27.20 is the total cost of that. If you don't have people in your community, and a lot of people don't, we have a group of stewards that work with us, and the cost goes up from there. And we do have some surcharges for winter and weekend burials as well. And all the costs are broken down on our website as well. So please don't feel like you have to be sitting here taking notes about that.
Thanks. Here is an interesting one. Joan is wondering about the use of a mushroom shroud to assist with decomposition.
Yeah, so this is a really, really wonderful question. Now, I want to differentiate. There's 2 types of mushroom burial products that are out there. So one is the shroud where the mushroom spores are embedded in a mushroom or embedded in it, and I'm going to talk about that one first. So this idea is that a woman at RISD had this idea that human bodies are a bit dangerous to the earth. And we think about it a little bit. If we think about our water supply right now, we worry about our water supply being contaminated with medications, whether it's chemotherapy drugs or antidepressants or hormones from birth control pills, et cetera, things like that. And so people worry that if we give the body directly back to the earth, that all of those medications or drugs are also going to go into the soil and contaminate the soil along with the bacteria in our bodies and everything else. And so she designed this suit. And the idea that the suit is that mushrooms, for those of you that don't know, one of the major things that they do in soil is filter out things that shouldn't be there and break them down. And so she thought if we wrapped bodies in a mushroom suit, we would make them safer for the environment. She also thought it would speed up the rate of decomposition. And so there's some reasons that we actually don't want to do this at all. And so one is the speeding up the rate of decomposition. We don't want to do that because decomposition is controlled by the needs of the environment around it. So for example, bodies that we bury at the cemetery in the winter, and yes, we do winter burials, there's not a lot of nutritive demand in the forest in the winter. So decomposition is going to be slower over the winter than it is in the spring when the trees are waking up and putting out their leaves and all of that. So we don't really want to mess with the rate of decomposition. But the other thing is that soil itself is a living organism. It is not just dirt. And what soil does is it breaks our bodies down in partnership with the bacteria in our guts. And everything that we're worried about getting into the soil is also an organic compound. And soil can break that down all by itself. So whether it's a chemotherapy drug, the drugs that are used in the medical aid and dying cocktail, hormones, antidepressants, those are going to break down along with the body. The soil doesn't need any help. It already has native fungus and other bacteria and microorganisms that exist that are very specific to the environment where that body is buried that help break it all down. So we don't need to add anything. We don't need to assist the soil in that process. So we don't allow anything like the mushroom shroud in our cemetery because it's not necessary and because it can actually harm the environment because we're introducing a mushroom species that doesn't exist in our forest. There is, however, a company that's out there that is growing mushroom caskets, and I don't quite know how this works, but they are not the spores, so it's not the active part of the mushroom, and they break down very, very quickly, and that we do allow. The idea is that anything that goes around the body, we want to have as little a barrier between the body and the soil as possible. So while we do allow, pine baskets or pine caskets and willow baskets, we prefer shrouds And something like this mushroom casket would be wonderful because it's designed to break down very quickly in soil as well. So yes to the mushroom casket, no to the mushroom shroud.
Thank you for that. Can you talk a little bit about establishing a cemetery on private property in Vermont?
I can. So I run a sister business called Green Mountain Funeral Alternatives. And one of the things I do there is I assist people with planning a home burial because you can have a cemetery on your own property in Vermont, but there are statutes that you need to follow, citing guidelines. You need to own your property outright. And there's also some really common sense things that you need to think through. In terms of siting the cemetery, you don't want to put it too close to your house. You want to create an easement so if the property changes hands, people can access it. And you need a plan. What's going to happen between the time that you die and the time that you need to be buried? I worked with a woman in the Northeast Kingdom who was an incredibly independent woman. And she told me, well, when she felt like she was ready to die, she was just going to go stand on the edge of her grave and fall in. And that's not a plan. So if you want to have burial on your own property, there's lots of things to think through. And I'm very happy to work with people on making that type of plan. The state also makes a resource called Digging Deep that you can download from the Secretary of State's office that talks to you about how to meet all the statutory guidelines for siting and things like that as well.
Thank you. Michelle, is there a difference between natural burial and green burial?
There isn't. I prefer the term natural burial because green gets thrown around a lot. And so there's a lot of things that are considered green in the burial industry right now, which include using water cremation instead of flame cremation, and human composting, natural organic reduction, and putting the body in the ground and then putting a concrete box on top of it, but that doesn't have something that goes underneath to cut the body off from the soil. None of those things are particularly green. Water cremation is still incredibly energy intensive. Natural organic reduction is sped up to the point that there's actually mechanical intervention that's needed to break the body down, and it involves using it involves using biological material that the people involved don't tell us what's in it, which is questionable. But it also happens at such a fast rate that we don't actually fully decompose the things in the body anymore. And if you put a concrete box in the ground, even if the body is touching the ground, it's cutting the body off from heat and oxygen, which are a necessary part of the decomposition process. So all of those things are considered green. And so I just want to kind of separate that and talk about natural burials where we're just putting the body right in the ground and letting the earth do what it has evolved to do, so as long as things have been dying on the surface of the earth. So I make that distinction just to make it very clear that we're just talking about this very, very simple thing.
Thank you. There's one question about prepayment, and so I wonder if that could also encompass just a few words about planning. That was one of the questions you and I brainstormed.
Yeah,
Plan all
So
of this.
and and Kate, Ron's widow, mentions it too, right? You can plan about it, and I like to tell people that planning is such a gift that you can give the people that you love, or that love you back. So we at Vermont Forest Cemetery, we are a nonprofit cemetery, and so you absolutely can buy your grave in advance. It is incredibly helpful to us when you do so. But I just sort of misspoke when I said buy your grave. What you do is you buy burial rights at the cemetery. We don't allow you to pick your spot ahead of time. If death is imminent, so it's reasonable to expect death will occur in 6 months, when you go on hospice, you can come and pick an exact spot in the cemetery. But prior to that, when you buy your burial rights, you just tell us what part of the cemetery in general that you're interested in. And so this is part of why we encourage people to come out, visit. You can come on one of the tours that we give. We are open dawn to dusk. So those of you that are winter hardy and enjoy snowshoeing or cross-country skiing, come out this winter and see it for yourself. But we have many different sort of areas of the cemetery that look different, feel different. Some are more human-scaped than others. So you can tell us what area of the cemetery that you like. And this is just because the forest changes every year and with time, and we want to make sure that you're really thinking about your grave, your specific grave site, as the backdrop for your burial day and not really necessarily your forever spot in the forest. And we also work with people, again, through my sister business, Green Mountain Funeral Alternatives. I work with people to create a step-by-step plan from the time of dying to the time of burial, so that everything that needs to be decided is decided, that it's got phone numbers for the people that are in charge of making decisions after you die, know exactly what they need to do in what order. And that includes, for people that are interested, laying out their own dead. It is your legal right in Vermont to care for your own dead. You do not need to hire a funeral director for any part of caring for your dead. And for many people, whether death is sudden or comes at the end of a long illness, it can be incredibly helpful for them to remain in contact with that body, and be the ones that prepare it themselves. And so we assist people that want to do that. Part of the planning process, it's not necessary for natural burial. You can absolutely work with a funeral director, and we can recommend funeral directors as well. I will say, if you just want to go off and do all this on your own, please make sure you appoint an agent of disposition. Almost everyone that's here in this room is probably aware of a healthcare agent. That's the person that you appoint when you cannot make medical decisions for yourself. They will make decisions as if they were you. But their rights expire when you die, right? A body doesn't have health care, so your healthcare agent no longer has anything that they have agency over. Your agent of disposition is the person that is responsible for making all of the decisions that happen to your body. It can be the exact same person. It is a slightly different designation. And for those of you that are familiar with advanced directive forms, the Vermont Ethics Network makes a long and a short form. They're both wonderful, and they both have a spot for you to designate an agent of disposition. But do make sure that you appoint an agent of disposition, and please make sure you tell people what your wishes are. We've had a couple families call us up and say, hey, my loved one just died. They wanted to be buried at Vermont Forest Cemetery. I don't know anything about this. For many of them, it's been a wonderful learning experience. For a couple of them, I think that they really would have rather done something else, but they were willing to do it because they love this person. But the most important thing that you can do is have conversations about your wishes with the people that love you, and make sure that their needs as mourners are going to be met, as well as your wishes for what happens to you.
Michelle, thank you so much. We're so grateful. We know that you need to get to your little ones, so we don't want to keep you. But I did put the Michelle's website link in the chat. And Michelle, if you wouldn't mind putting that back in, that would be wonderful. And we are so grateful to you for coming tonight. So thank you. And again, we're so grateful to everyone who attended. PCV is a nonprofit organization, as I said before, funded by donations and grants. And so if you enjoyed tonight's presentation and would like to help us make more of these available, I'm going to put our donation link in the chat if you're so inclined. And we're, of course, so grateful for any and all contributions. The recording of tonight's presentation will be available shortly. We don't put a deadline on that, but it will be available shortly on the videos page of our website. And I'll be honest with you, at some point, we're probably going to separate out the Act 39 presentation so it stands alone, and then post videos of our speakers. So if you want to go back and review the information on Act 39, it'll either be all one video or it'll be a separate one. It'll be on the videos page. It will be very carefully labeled, so you'll be able to find it easily. We want to make sure that that's available. And I just put that in the chat. And our next session is on Tuesday, December 2nd. And it's called Having Family Conversations as we gather for the holidays. It's a time sometimes to be able to have some conversations with your family and loved ones about your end of life wishes. Amy is going to co-present that along with Cindy Brucesi of the Vermont Ethics Network, the organization that Michelle just mentioned. And so if you're interested, I've just put the link to our calendar page on the website, or excuse me, in the chat, so that you can register if you're so inclined. And 2026 is coming, so we will be continuing these monthly sessions into 2026. And if anyone has an idea for topics or speakers that you would like to see in the new year, I'll put my email in the chat again. Always happy to have any kind of input. And I will stay a little bit longer in case anybody has any last minute questions. And again, Michelle, thank you so much. I've had several meetings with you, and I didn't know until I just watched the film again that you're called Tiny Death Witch, and I just
Yes.
love that. I don't know why you didn't lead with that when we first met. So thank you so much for all of your passion and energy and expertise and this wonderful, wonderful thing that you've brought to Vermont. So thank you so very much, and thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you all for coming tonight, and please reach out through the website if you have questions, join one of our Q&As, come and visit. You don't need to make special arrangements, you can just come, but all of our tour information's on the website as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, you just signed up a volunteer. Awesome.
Oh, thank you, Emmy. Thank you. All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.